Hello, everyone. Welcome to Online Presenters, a virtual Toastmasters club. I'm Sergeant at Arms Sunny Fridge, aka Dr. Sunny. Members, we love you, and to our guests, a warm welcome. We're so thrilled by your interest in our club. Please note if you wish to join Online Presenters, well, you must be or should be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches. However, if you have substantial, relevant presentation experience, we welcome you to apply for membership after demonstrating your abilities in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to approval by our club members. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it displays your name and role. Hover over your video, right-click, and select Rename. Remember, mute your microphone when you're not speaking. We have members and guests from many countries throughout the world. As a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we're recording this meeting. Your video and audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. And now, please help me welcome to the virtual stage our convivial club president, Joni Laidlaw. Welcome, Joni.
Thank you to our Sergeant at Arms, Sunny Fridge. I like that, convivial. Usually I say I'm jovial. Maybe there's another adjective now that I can add, even though it doesn't start with J, so it might not align so much. Today, we are going to, well, sing, 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 sing. Or I'm assuming that's the point of our agenda for today. But to lead us through our agenda, I'm going to call on, and I'm wondering if this was selected because he was on the radio and he was a DJ, so he appreciates music. But I'll allow him to take us through the meeting and tell us why we're going to have to sing for our supper. Please help me welcome our Toastmaster of the day, Graham Carnes.
Thank you, President Joni, and welcome everybody to this meeting of online presenters. The theme for the meeting is Sing for Your Supper, and it's an interesting theme. I'll actually talk about cultural references in a speech, which I'm going to put myself down to do next week, because I hadn't realized that this phrase, sing for your supper, wasn't a universally known phrase. In Australia, and I suspect in many parts of Europe, to sing for your supper is the expectation that you will perform in order to get paid. It comes from when the medieval jongleurs used to wander around from court to court to court, from place to place to place, from pub to pub to pub, and they would literally sing for their supper. They would perform in return for accommodation and food. Now, for us as Toastmasters, as presenters, we sing for our supper quite regularly, I suspect. I would imagine that most people in this room have at some stage or another spoken to a group in return for some form of compensation. It might be going to your local Lions Club and talking and getting a meal and being welcomed. It might be, in my case, I speak on cruise ships. I don't pay for the cruises, but in return, I have to deliver lectures so that my wife and I can sail for free, or at least close to free. All of us sing for our supper in one way or another. At work, often we're called upon to make presentations in return for us having employment. So sing for your supper. I chose this because it is National Eisteddfod Week in Wales. And Eisteddfod, I always thought was just sort of a singing competition, but it is much more than that. And Eisteddfod is a Welsh-based thing where people get to deliver. They get to present. It might be singing. coming from Wales, there's no great surprise that singing is important. It might be delivering poetry. It might be reading prose. It might be any form of delivery or presentation. The Eisteddfod runs for a full week. It is a huge thing in Wales, and I imagine in many Commonwealth countries. So I noticed that Andrew has just put up into the chat some background to the Eisteddfod and some background to the phrase sing for your supper. So check out the chat a little later. But that's what the theme of tonight's meeting is, to sing for your supper, to perform in return for some form of compensation. The word of the day is convivial, because convivial relates to singing for your supper and being out there. Convivial is literally lively, friendly, enjoyable. You might have a convivial cocktail party. It might be that you are cheerful and friendly. It might be that, like Joni, you are jovial. It might be that, like, well, anyway, that's convivial. So that's our word for the meeting. Try to use that somewhere through the meeting. We have no member inductions today. So I'm going to introduce all of the various ancillary roles before we get to the tip of the day. With Kritika. Is Kritika here, by the way? I haven't actually seen her yet, so we'll get to that in a moment. But I'm going to introduce all of the ancillary roles, those who help a meeting go according to plan. And the first of those is our timer, Joni Renee Laidlaw. Hello, Joni. Can you give us an indication of how you will indicate timing during tonight's meeting?
Thank you so much for the introduction. I think I was here before, but in a different role, but a Toastmaster wears many hats. Today, I will be your timer, and as timer, I will change my background in various ways to state where our speakers are in the program. For our prepared speeches, for a 5 to 7 minute speech, it will be green at 5 minutes, yellow at 6, and red at 7 minutes. For our 7 to 9 minute speech, it will be green at 7, yellow at 8, and red at 9. I'll also time our table topics speeches, which will be green at 1 minute, yellow 1:30, and red at 2 minutes. For our evaluators, they'll also be timed. We pretty much time everything in Toastmasters. 2 minutes green, 2:30 yellow, red will be at 3 minutes, and I will give my report when called upon to do so in the chat right at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Graham.
Fabulous, and I thank you for that, Joni. Our second ancillary person tonight is the R counter, Alison Blakeman. Ali, can you tell us what you'll be doing in your role?
I would be happy to, Mr. Toastmaster of the day. So as the R counter, I will be listening and noting when we say those pesky filler words like so, well, you know, and then I will be keeping track of that for our meeting. And then when called upon at the end, I will report who has been issued an ticket today. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Ali. Our grammarian today, and before I call on him to tell me what he's going to do as grammarian, I want to thank Andre for being here. One, it's 1 o'clock in the morning for him, and two, he's taken time out of his mum is visiting, and yet he's still here tonight. So yay! Andre, what are you going to be doing as grammarian tonight?
Oh, Graham, well, thank you. I'll take your compliments with pleasure. I'm really dedicated to online presenters, even at 1 o'clock in the morning. My heart is singing. And why is singing? Because I have an exciting role to play today, is grammarian. That's why. My role as the grammarian for the club consists of a number of parts. First, to introduce the word of the day, which has already been introduced by our Toastmaster of the day, but I'll give you a quick reminder, is convivial. Convivial meaning friendly, lively, enjoyable. For example, convivial cocktail party. I'll put the word of the day in the chat, and I will encourage all presenters to use it appropriately, because I will keep a track of every time you use it, and I will announce the winners at the end of our meeting. The second part of my role is to look out for the particularly good use of the English language. using simile, metaphor, and other forms of speech. Again, I will announce the winners at the end of the meeting, if the time permits. Those are my parts of the grammarian role. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Andre, and thank you for agreeing to be the grammarian tonight. Our next person is the watcher, Jim Barber. Jim is watching you, and he's going to tell us why.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. As the watcher this evening, I will be watching you. Basically, the watcher is a visual grammarian. I'm going to be paying attention to how everyone looks, and at the end of the meeting, I will come through with, I hope, a convivial summary of everything that I saw. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jim. Jim can actually sing, even if he was going sort of all over the place like a mad woman's breakfast. But thank you for that. Actually, I wonder whether that's a phrase that you guys are familiar with, all over the place like a mad woman's breakfast. No? No, it must be an Aussie thing. All right, never mind. Let's move on to our chat monitor, Sunny Fridge.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be part of this convivial meeting. As chat monitor, I'll keep track of the most helpful, encouraging, convivial, or humorous posts. When called upon, I'll give a 1-minute report highlighting the most noteworthy items placed in the chat during this meeting. Back to you, Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Dr. Sunny. And the next role is currently marked as blank, but that's because I didn't ask her until very late. Sherry Blake, are you happy to be our vote counter for today? Or are you willing to be our vote counter today, which is probably a slightly different question?
Well, I don't mind doing it, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to go to. I don't know how to do it the way David Carr would do it. But I
David
can
may send you a
do it
link
the
to do
simple
it.
way. You just have people send you private chats and keep notes.
That's not the simple way. The way you do it is simple. What are you talking about? That's the hard way.
Well, that's my theory.
But okay, I
anyway.
can do that if you need me to. No worries.
Fabulous. Thank you, Sherry. Sherry will take note of the votes. And of course, to be eligible for the best speaker, best evaluator, and best table topic, you have to not only be the best, but you actually have to be within the time as well. So if you're giving a speech, you have to be within 30 seconds of the red light. If you're giving a table topic, you've got to be between 1 and 2 minutes 30. And if you're giving an evaluation, you have to be between 1 minute 30 and 3 minutes 30. But anyway, the timing will be announced by the Toastmaster. That's moi. At the beginning of each event, and then if you can send your vote after each segment to Sherry, that would be fabulous. Time now to move on to the speaking session of the meeting. We would normally have a tip of the day, and in fact we were supposed to be having a tip of the day from Kritika, but Kritika isn't here, so I'm assuming she's not going to be presenting the tip of the day, but that's all right. We will have extra time for table topics, which is a good thing, because table topics, I think, is an invaluable part of Toastmasters. We're all Toastmasters. I don't need to go through this, except perhaps for the recording. So if you're watching this later and wondering, what is this table topics? What is this speaking? What is this evaluation of which you speak? In a typical Toastmasters meeting, there are 3 segments. The first is the prepared presentations, and we have 2 prepared presentations tonight. They are presentations which are designed to meet a specific speaking goal. Then there will be impromptu speaking, which is the most common and arguably most important form of speaking that we are called upon to do. It's rare that the boss is going to ask you to give a 10-minute speech to the board, but it is not unusual for her to ask, can you please bring everybody up to speed in your group about this? So that's the impromptu speaking. And then the keynote to the Toastmasters experience is evaluation. There is no point in any of us being here and presenting unless we get feedback to get better. Now, it's not criticism. We don't criticize here. It's not judgment. We don't judge here, except in speech competitions, but it is evaluation. It is feedback designed to help us as speakers and everybody else in the room to become better communicators. So those are the three parts of the meeting. I'm in charge of the first two, that is the formal presentations, and then handing over to the Table Topics Master. Our first speaker tonight is going to be Marianne Grady. Marianne is going to be speaking from the Dynamic Leadership Path. This is a level 1 speech. She's doing the evaluation and feedback project. In this, Marianne gives a presentation, gets evaluation, and then is asked to add those specific points for improvement into her next presentation. Excuse me a moment.
Now it's your turn to be muted, Graham.
Sorry, I did mute myself for the cough and not for the... Right, good. Just making sure. I thought just for a horrible moment I hadn't muted the cough and then muted myself afterwards. Marianne Grady is our immediate past president and will speak about a very important day, the day she went to prison. This is the first speech in the evaluation and feedback project. She will take the feedback from this evening and incorporate that feedback as she delivers the same speech at a future meeting. So please welcome, for a time of 5 to 7 minutes, Marianne with her speech, The Day I Went to Prison.
Why, good evening, everyone. So happy to see you. Tonight, I'm going to share with you about the day I went to prison. Now, I wasn't convicted of a crime. I walked through those heavy doors intentionally with the purpose of serving and trying to live a purposeful life. I had lived in New Jersey for almost 60 years. During that time, I built a network from business, personal life, service, and I had opportunities to help others often. And I just loved that about my time there. I believe in my heart that the reason we are all here on this earth is to help other people. But in 2019, things changed. I retired. Then shortly after that, my husband and I moved to Delaware. Then COVID hit. The isolation from COVID was crushing to me. We were in a state now with no family and friends and no visible path forward for me. We decided we would move again, this time to Florida. I had 2 of my 3 children there, and of course, 4 of my 6 granddarlings. So this was a very good move for me. When I got there, I searched for ways to serve. I went to volunteer fairs. I looked through church outreach. I had one-off projects, but none really seemed to speak to my soul. Then I had a twist. I had a heart attack last September, and recovery was very slow. I was in a wheelchair, but something just kept pressing on my heart, which was, if I want to do something meaningful, I have to get busy. Time is short. So one Sunday I went to church and one of my fellow parishioners was up on the altar speaking about the prison ministry. He talked about how the incarcerated individuals really hungered for the word of God. And he talked about how this ministry changed his life. He also said they needed volunteers. My eyes lit up. Afterwards, I called him to find out more. He said the conditions are tough, but every one of the people who comes to the program signs up for it. They're not forced to do it. And this told me that these people really wanted God's word and that they probably really needed it. So I took the next step. I went to a meeting with the volunteers. A lot of the ministers talked about, they gave their testimonies. And one woman said, oh, the female prisoners, they just really crave physical contact, a hug. Hugging strangers in prison? That seemed a little uncertain to me. Then another woman comes over and goes, "Oh, those ladies just love to sing." That was something I hadn't considered. I'm a Toastmaster, not a vocalist. But still, I pressed forward. I was invited to shadow one of the ministers as they did one of the sessions. Myself and another volunteer went. We arrived early as instructed. When we got inside, the guard was very stern, and her voice was very sharp as she led us down that corridor. I just followed and put my head down. Then we got to the room. Cinder block walls all around. No air conditioning. A Florida heat advisory was blazing outside. It was more than 100 degrees. When the women walked in, though, everything changed. These were not hardened criminals and tough girls that I was envisioning. They were all just truly lovely. And every one of them came up and gave me a hug, which I thought was going to be awkward, but it was really okay. It felt really right. So then the minister spoke about God's peace. The women were rapt. They listened. Some of them were even crying. Then the lead minister asked me to go console a woman who was overcome with emotion. So I went over and I sat next to her and I went to hold her hand. And she pulled her hand back and she said, "I'm dirty." And I said, "Well, that's okay. That doesn't matter." And I was pretty sure God didn't think it mattered either. I sat among them. They wrote down their prayer intentions. They talked about seeing their children. They wanted redemption and a fresh start. They shared openly and vulnerably. I had prepared some reflective questions about the theme. I asked the questions, they answered, and time just melted away. At the end of the hour, the women were both seen and heard by us and by God. The guard returned, and as we walked out, something truly shifted in me. On the day I went to prison, I didn't find punishment. I found purpose. And now I ask you, what are you waiting for? You were created with gifts the world desperately needs. Not someday, now. So look around in your neighborhood, in your church, in your town. Where can you shine your light the brightest? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you're ready. I certainly didn't do that. Go where you're needed, show up, serve, and love. I found my calling behind prison walls. Where will you find yours? Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm not going to say too much because that's the role of your evaluator, but I have to say I found that particularly powerful. Well done, and I thank you. Our second speaker, oh, can I get the timing for that just for the evaluator, Joni?
That was 6 minutes, 32 seconds.
Fabulous, thank you. Our second speaker tonight is Asyl Boizhan. Now, Asyl is speaking from the Engaging Humour path. This is level 3, engage your audience with humour. She's asked for a little longer than normal. She's asked for 7 to 9 minutes. So if we can have lights at 7, 8 and 9, please, Madam Timekeeper. When Asyl first heard the phrase, "sing for your supper," she wasn't quite sure what it meant. But as she soon discovered, it's not about singing, it's about showing up, about stepping up, and about sometimes doing more than you expected, all in the spirit of earning your place. In today's speech, she shares a light-hearted and personal story about what happened when she found herself in exactly that position, learning, laughing, and maybe doing a bit of metaphorical singing along the way. So please welcome Asyl Boizhan with "Sing for Your Supper."
Fellow Toastmasters and dear guest, Annie, What do Toastmasters do when they visit or move to different countries? They look for a local club to visit or even join. That's what I did when we came to New Zealand last year. After years of online meetings, I was still getting used to the in-person club when one day I got an email from our convivial area director, Jerry, asking for volunteers for the upcoming speech contests. As someone new to the country, I thought it would be a nice opportunity to meet more people. So I volunteered to be the timer. It felt like a safe choice, simple, quiet, and tucked away at the timing table to ease myself in. But then Jerry sent another email. Actually, we really need more speakers, he wrote. And that's when I thought, well, I guess I'll have to sing for my supper after all. One thing led to another, and soon I found myself not only speaking at the area contest, but also advancing to the division level. Apparently, once you start singing for your supper, Toastmasters thinks you are ready for a full 3-course meal. That experience, though unplanned, came with its own set of lessons. Lesson number 1. Feedback is like getting directions from 5 different people. Everyone says, practice your speech and get feedback. So I did. I delivered my speech twice at the club and carefully listened to everyone's suggestions. What they don't tell you is that feedback is like asking for restaurant recommendations. Everyone has a different opinion, and somehow you end up more confused than when you started. Originally, I had a story about my husband getting lost using a paper map. Someone told me, you should talk about your own experience instead. So I took him out completely. Poor guy. First he got lost, then he got removed from the story altogether. People who had seen both versions said the second version sounded like a completely different speech. It's also interesting to hear that some people liked the first version and others the second. It reminded me how differently people connect with a story. Lesson number 2. The stage has a mind of its own. After spending so much time in online meetings, where moving usually meant shifting in your chair or reaching for a cup of tea, stepping onto a real stage was unexpectedly complicated. And you all know that in Toastmasters, movement matters. Whether you are flying confidently across the stage or crawling from one corner to another, it's supposed to add meaning and energy to your message. The challenge was I wasn't quite sure what my movements were saying. I suddenly had all this space and I felt like GPS that had lost signal, confidently heading somewhere. My brain was doing its best to remind me, move, 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 while my feet seemed to be asking, do we have to? And also why? Lesson number 3, there is no microphone. At the club, we already tried to speak up, but in a larger venue like a conference hall, you have to speak up even louder. I knew I had to project, but thinking about it while giving the speech became its own challenge, especially when I was trying to shift between characters or imitate different voices. Suddenly, one part of my brain was performing and the other was doing sound checks. Was that loud enough? Did that last sentence fade too much? Should I repeat it louder? Voice projection is something that really needs to be practiced beforehand, because when you are up there juggling your delivery, characters, and timing, volume becomes just one more spinning plate. No mic? Great! Now it's just me, my lungs, and 20 rows of people pretending they can hear me. In the end, I came second. And honestly, I was content, not just because of the contest, but because of the food. Free food. Part of the convivial spirit of Toastmasters events. There was pizza, snacks, fruit, some sauce, beetroot sauce, another sauce. But the beetroot sauce was good, really good. Oh my goodness. Anyway, back to the speech. It turns out sometimes you really do have to sing for your supper. And sometimes you actually get to eat it too. And that just because I said yes to timing and helping out. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Asyl, again, I am astounded at how much I enjoy your presentations every time. That was delightful. Thank you for that. Some really great, valuable lessons. Again, I'm not going to say too much. That's the role of your evaluator. But I thank you for your presentation. In fact, I thank both of our speakers today for their presentations. Can I get the timing on Asyl's speech? I know it was within time.
8 minutes, 19 seconds.
Perfect. Was within the 7 to 9 minutes which Asyl had been allocated. So that means that both of our speakers today are eligible to win the Best Speaker Award. Now comes the hard part, having to decide who you're going to vote for, and then sending that vote via private message to Sherry Blake, unless you wish everybody to know how your vote went. But and it was quite funny last week. I noticed that one of the speakers nominated somebody else in the public chat. So the other person in the public chat said, well, only to be fair, I'll nominate the other person. And they cancelled each other out, which other was, yeah, very convivial of them both. But yes, so if you can please send your vote to our vote counter for today. Before I hand to our table topics master, the theme for the meeting is Sing for Your Supper. And as I say, it's really about performing and presenting in return for some form of compensation, even if that's only the sheer joy that we get with applause from an audience. But sometimes it's not even about the applause. There was a song which I didn't realize was actually originally on Sesame Street back in 1971. I didn't know that it was a Sesame Street song. I only ever knew of the Carpenters cover version, which they did many years later. It's called Sing a Song. And in it, there are some really quite meaningful lyrics. Make it simple to last your whole life long. Don't worry that it's not good enough for anyone else to hear. Just sing a song. So, on that note, I'm now going to hand control of the meeting to our Table Topics Master, Dr. Andrew Byrne, and Andrew will explain how Table Topics will work, the timing for the various topic speakers, and all the things that he needs to do. So please welcome Table Topics Master, Dr. Andrew Byrne, DTM by 3.
Thank you very much, Graham. Can I first have our timer explain the time parameters for table topics or impromptu speaking?
Sure. For table topics, you'll be timed at green 1 minute, yellow 1:30, red 2 minutes. Speak until you see the green card. Yellow means keep going. Red, wrap it up, because when you hit 2:30, you're disqualified from being eligible to win Best Table Topics. Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. We are working off of the theme of the day, which is Sing for Your Supper. As I researched it, it was from the Welsh area of England before it was England, and it dealt with literally singing or performing for your ability to receive payment, recognition, and things of that nature. I put a number of mind melts where it talked about the different areas of singing for your supper. But I do have questions along the same theme, and I'm going to give you the first question, and then I'll select someone to answer that. Here's the question. How has music influenced your journey, and can you share a specific moment when a song or performance changed your perspective? And for that, I'm going to call on Sarah. You need me to repeat the question?
Yes, repeat the question, please.
How has music influenced your journey? And can you share a specific moment when a song or performance changed your perspective?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Good evening to everyone. Music is very important to me, although I don't consider myself a singer and I don't really sing. Every now and then I may say a little tune, or belt out a little tune. But music is important because it has a way of lifting your spirits, maybe when you're down, and giving you more excitement. Music can help you open up the brain juices. Usually I like to listen to just the simple music with no words. Usually it's a bossa novas or something like that. Or you can chill hop music where it just lets you think and you can study good, or you can write or whatever you want to do. I really thinking on it. It changes your moods, lifts you up, and it helps you do better what you're going to do. So most of the time I will start it early in the morning, since I'm in my office all day right at home. Start it early in the morning and then just let it play all day or even to lunchtime. And I find that I work better, I think better, I do better, and I'm all excited when my husband comes home from his day job outside of the home. So music has a way of doing it. Mostly it's just music without words, but every now and then words make a difference as well. I remember once when my youngest daughter was going through a little challenge in high school, and we found this song that says, "Nothing's gonna break my stride. Nobody's gonna hold me down. You gotta keep on moving." And when I told her that, well, she kept it, and she said she used it many times, even as she got older. So I love words as far as them helping you, but I really like just the music itself. Back to you, Andy.
Thank you very much. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. And we all relish in your convivial presentations. The second question in what ways you believe singing or performing can serve as a form of expressing one's cultural heritage, particularly in Welsh traditions. I'll repeat. In what ways do you believe singing or performing can serve as a form of expressing one's culture's heritage, particularly in Welsh traditions? And for this, I'm going to choose Andre since he's closer to this area than any of us.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. What a wonderful question about the culture, tradition, music, and convivial lifestyle. I would say is something that comes into my mind. When I came to England very first time, I could barely speak English. I could barely ask what time it was, and I could introduce myself in a few basic words. At the same time, what I had a Walkman on me. Probably, oh yes, we, the audience, know what the Walkman is because I struggled to explain the cassette Walkman and the headphones on to the younger audience, to my children, for example. I had a Walkman on. And when I met a number of strangers, I had the pre-recorded messages about how to get to the Buckingham Palace, for example. And I would just put the headphones on a stranger's head and then would ask them what I wanted to do. The most useful thing that I found in terms of cultural integrations was humming. When you hum in any language with famous songs, everyone can hum along. And you can get what I'm trying to say. And we used to have a few drinks in the hostel where I stay in London. People from quite a few different countries could barely speak English, but with humming, yes, the humming brings us all together, gives us joy, and gives us opportunity to express our cultural differences in unity. Hum along. Back to you, Andre.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very congenial. Okay, next question. Can you describe an experience where you felt compelled to sing for your supper, overcoming challenges to achieve a goal or a dream? I'll repeat. Can you describe an experience where you felt compelled to sing for your supper, overcoming challenges to achieve a goal or a dream? For this, I'm going to ask Allison Blakeman to help us out.
Alrighty, thank you, Dr. Andrew Byrne. So a time when I had to sing for my supper, I'm going to take that in a different way, because all through my life, I've had to sing for my supper. I've had to work very hard. I'm going to transition a little bit, and I'm going to steal part of the original question that you had asked earlier about a song that really meant something to you. And this one's really dear to my heart. When I went through a divorce in 2016, it was a very rough time for me. I'd started a new job. I became a single parent to an 8-year-old daughter. Going through my 23 and 3/4 year marriage had ended. I heard a song by Tom Petty called Learning to Fly. I heard the song and I broke down and I cried and I said, oh my gosh, that's my song. Because he said, I'm learning to fly and I ain't got wings. I'm coming down, or coming down is the hardest thing. And I heard those lyrics and I bawled because I related that as, how am I going to learn to fix my 8-year-old daughter's hair? How am I going to learn to match her outfits? And so that she doesn't go to school and get ridiculed and say, did someone who dressed you a blind person? And no offense to anyone, please. But I heard that song and it gave me hope. And I would sing it over and over and over. So in a sense, that is kind of me singing for my supper, because that song carried me through a very, very, very dark time in my life. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate you sharing that moment with us. The next question is, what role does your community play in the performances celebrated at the National Eisensport, and how might individual contributions be amplified in such a collective environment? Excuse me. For this, I'm going to choose Sherry Blake.
Why did I know you would choose me for this? But thank you so much, Andrew. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't have a clue in terms of what this means.
Okay, let me put it a different way. Have you ever gone to a Renaissance festival, a Renaissance fair?
A Renaissance festival? No, I've never been to one of Beyonce's concerts, but I heard she has a great album. And matter of fact, I shouldn't even say I heard she has a great album. I have listened to her album. Now, that wonderful horse that she's sitting on her album cover, it's out of this world. And I've had friends who have attended her Renaissance concert, and they said her daughter was spectacular. I think during her first concert with her daughter, I guess Blue Ivy was a little awkward, but during her second concert, Blue Ivy showed out. So that's how I can relate Renaissance to your question, Andy. But these are fabulous questions because all of them have stumped me. And the one that you gave me was even more of a stumper. Back to you, Andy.
Well, thank you. You were an example of switching the question to something that you can answer. What Renaissance festivals refer to is a time period where you had castles in the Renaissance period and jogging and jousting and all sorts of other things representing the Renaissance period of history from the England and UK time period culture. All right, so that's what that one was all about. The next question is, and Timer, how are we doing in terms of time left for this segment?
We're doing really well. We have a lot of time. You can probably do 2 more questions.
I have prepared 10. What messages or themes do you believe should be highlighted through performances at events like this event at the National Eisensport, and why do they resonate with you? That question goes to Jim Barber.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Topics Master. If Sherry can pivot, whew, I can do a 360-degree turn. Let's see what I can do with that. To answer your question, let me tell you about the profound effect that music has had on my life, and it's not the one that you might expect. See, I enjoyed singing, and I was actually in my high school chorus at about the age of, 14, I think, something like that. I had, I'm told, a beautiful voice, a beautiful alto voice. Unfortunately, something dreadful happened. Puberty. In a matter of a few days, my voice plunged from an alto to a deep baritone value. However, I was relatively shy at the time. I did not want to tell my instructor, the teacher, the lady teacher that was teaching us chorus, that my voice had changed. So I simply faked it. I mouthed the words for the rest of the semester, no sounds coming out of my mouth because I could not control what pitch I was going to be at. My shyness got even worse. I found that I was reluctant to even talk to anybody because I didn't know what vocal range. I might start as an alto, I might start a sentence as an alto and finish it in a baritone and bounce back again to an alto. I didn't talk to people, didn't talk much beforehand, definitely didn't talk afterwards. It took years, it took Toastmasters to bring me out of my shell and get me to where I can talk to other people. I do not sing for other people. I did that earlier this evening simply because, I don't know, I was feeling a little bit brazen. But nevertheless, I do not, as I say, sing in public, and that is my answer to your question, slightly pivoted. Mr. Topics Master.
Okay. The next question is, what are the barriers that individuals might face when trying to express themselves through music or performance, and how can these barriers be overcome? Think of the movie Coda. How many people saw that movie? It was on Apple TV. It's Children of Deaf Adults. And it was a story of a young woman who was part of a family. She had a brother, and both her parents and her brother were all deaf. And she became the interpreter for everyone. And she loved music and sang. And it was a beautiful story. If you catch it, it's on Apple TV. But it's called Coda. So, what are the barriers that individuals might face, such as she did, when trying to express themselves through music or performance, and how can these barriers be overcome? To this, I'll ask David to share his thoughts on this.
How can those barriers be overcome? Well, since everybody else is doing it, I'm going to pivot off in a completely different direction. I'm going to speak about the barriers of good taste and overcoming good taste. Because one of my inspirational speakers growing up was a gentleman named Oscar Brand, who did a whole album of slightly dirty ditties that included the song that I have been looking for an excuse to sing a few lyrics from, No Hips at All, about the woman who rolls over to her husband, and the lyric goes, she reached for his shoulders seemed small. She reached for his hips, he had no hips at all. No hips at all, no hips. And so she goes and she complains to her mother. And of course, her mother's response is, daughter, oh daughter, now don't feel so sad. I had the same problem with your dear old dad. There's many a young man who'll come at the call of the wife of a man who has no hips at all. No hips at all. Anyway, I've hit green. I will stop there.
Okay, thank you, David. That was very interesting. In your opinion, what makes a performance memorable? Can you share a story about a moment in a performance that left a lasting impression on you? And for that, I'm going to choose Joni.
Thank you for that. And I was just going to state this is actually the last question available. Since we're doing pivot and I'm being convivial and I wanted to answer the previous question, guess what I'm going to answer today? But don't worry, I'll incorporate it with this one. The things in our life that actually are difficult is what makes us memorable. I was watching TikTok and there's this person, he calls them his flaps, doesn't have hands. I was looking at his handwriting and I thought, I am so jealous. He writes so beautifully. Then I remembered about the person who actually, she has no hands. She writes with her feet and she won, get this, a writing competition. You gave the example of somebody who was raised by deaf parents and they grew up to be amazing singers. They're neurodivergent people who just do not get society and cannot understand it at all, but they become the philosophers. They become the people who wax philosophical and state help to organize society. That's the thing. And it's the same thing when it comes to music. Shakira was told that she sounded like a goat. I can see where they're coming from, but that's what made her memorable. A lot of people aren't the best at anything. What they actually are is the more determined. Or They embrace the things about them that make them different. See, if we're all the same, this world would be so boring. As somebody who is eclectic, I listen to everything. I love Renaissance, Beyonce, just as much as I love Renaissance fair. I love the remixes in every possible order. And people say, do you listen to everything? Yes. And why I do, it's because of the human experience and everybody being amazing with their lived experience and how it's expressed. Back to you, our table topics master.
Well, you've already identified that that was the last one. I think that you have the times posted, or at least I saw a whole bunch of times posted. If everybody reached the appropriate time, just answer to Sherry by direct message who your selection is for the best prepared or riveted or changed table topics for tonight. And we now go back to the Toastmaster of the day, who will give it to the general evaluator.
Indeed, that's exactly what's going to happen. So please send your vote to our vote counter so that everybody can vote. I thank everybody for your convivial contributions today. I'm particularly appreciative of both the prepared speakers and the impromptu speakers. I thank everyone for making my job as Toastmaster as easy as it possibly could. And I'll now hand control of the meeting to our general evaluator, who will take us through and then hand back to the president to close the meeting. So please welcome your general evaluator, Sarah Idahan.
Thank you, Graham, and good evening again to everyone. This is the part of the meeting where we evaluate how well we have done. We're going to hear evaluation of the speakers and the evaluations of the no evaluation of the evaluators, just evaluations of the speakers. And we're going to start out, and we're also going to hear from our reports from our people who helped us throughout the meeting as well. But we're going to start out with the evaluation of our first speaker. And so we're going to ask David Carr to evaluate Marianne's speech. Please welcome David.
Thank you, General Evaluator. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guest, and especially, of course, Marianne. So we have to give Marianne credit, first of all, for the skill with which she shared a virtual background that was very good for setting the scene, bringing us into this topic visually. And it wasn't too busy of a background either. It was something that clearly was just in the background. One of the questions that arose is, I would guess that a modern prison actually probably doesn't look too much like that, because that looked like it was out of a museum, some historical reenactment that you could go through that showed you what people used to be locked up in prisons. I could be wrong. It could have been different and horrible in other ways, but I think modern prisons might be a little bit more sterile, sort of like an office park where you're really, or an office building where you really are locked in your cube. But it was a great speech because it was something about using your skills, your personality, your communication for a purpose to do good in the world. And so that is something that is very engaging and inspiring to share with all of us. And especially, one of the things that I think strikes home to everybody who's maybe over 40 or 50, time is short. Time is short. And you had some events in your life that reminded you that time could be short, and that if you wanted to do things that you had been meaning to do, it was time to do them. And so that's a very powerful lesson to bring home for all of us. In terms of technical delivery, I mentioned the background. There was a technical issue going on. I'm not sure it's one that you could have done much about, unless this is on my end. But I was seeing your video kind of freeze periodically. It was basically lagging a few seconds behind, and so that could be a symptom of maybe doing it on Wi-Fi rather than being plugged into a network cable. Maybe it's just something to be conscious of if it comes up again in future meetings. I don't know if there's anything that's unusual about your internet setup today. But you know, again, there's not in the middle of the speech, there's definitely not much you can do about it. I love when people yell at somebody and say, "You're frozen," and you know they can't tell that they're frozen. They're behaving perfectly normally. But the whole idea of the message being heard by you and being heard by God and bringing us into that moment. The one unresolved question that left me with at the end is, did you ever go back? Was it just that one occasion? When you say this is where you found a calling, did it lead you to go back? And so you left me kind of hanging on that. But I'll close there. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, David. May we have David's time? Madam Timer?
David was 2 seconds over, so it was 3 minutes, 32 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Timer. And thank you, David, for your evaluation. And I did mention, although Graham had mentioned it before, about the timing for the evaluations. It's going to be 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the green, at 2.5, the yellow, and at 3, the red, just for those who may not have heard it in the beginning. Our next evaluator of Asyl speech is Annie, and Annie is our guest. So please welcome Annie to evaluate Asyl's speech.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to evaluate Asyl. I was very glad that I was on mute because there were a number of times I was laughing out loud and I thought I will interrupt her if she can hear me. Asyl made me laugh out loud, and maybe many of you as well, by the use of her vocals and also by the use of her visuals, and I'll talk about both. The vocals, she was able to vary her voice to make things funny, like saying something rather than saying the stage has a mind of its own. She says the stage has a mind of its own. And by pacing out her words, we're getting her humor and understanding her message, more importantly, like the stage, that's big and scary. I love the way that Asyl was able to do that. Her visuals, they were brilliant. She was able to come in close to the screen saying things like, was it loud? Was it loud enough? And so understanding again how we're receiving messages in the online world by exactly our intensity, and to use the camera extremely well in that case. Also, her body language. There were times where I was seeing exactly very, very funny about how she came second. It's not a place that everyone wants to be in, but her use of her body language is really accentuating how she was feeling. I do have a recommendation, and that is in terms of the visuals. I enjoyed your background screen very much. I like the cartoon, and then we had the signposts of the 3 lessons in your speech. However, the first one with feedback, directions from 5 different people, too wordy. Bring that down, or something more catchy, or maybe a tiny visual with question marks that indicates that in a somewhat more succinct way. I found myself wanting to read that. It's not about reading what's on your screen, it's about your message and listening to the remarkable way that you present it. The third thing that brought all of that together, the visuals and the vocals, was her speech construction and how she gave us 3 lessons and how she could weave in different themes. And that really evolved as the speech developed. So the humor about speaking, but really it was about food. And cleverly, this tied back to her title, Singing for Your Supper, and the humor just spilt forth with about, you know, she came second, but even better, there was the food, and then we got the laughs. Had the laughs about the beetroot sauce, and she took us down a little rabbit hole around the food, again building on the humor, done extremely well. I do absolutely believe that Asyl met the purpose of her speech was to determine her style of humor. And she does this because she's cheeky, she's observant, and has excellent use of both her vocals and visuals. Thank you.
Thank you for your evaluation, Annie. I would just like to say that before we get the evaluations from the reports from the other helpers out, I would like to say that we began our meeting on time, and we've been doing a very good job of keeping on time as we go on. In the opening, we had a very convivial opening. Excitement was generated, and we were looking forward to a great meeting. Thank you, Graham, for that. I also thank Graham for his interpretation of what it means to sing for your supper. For all of us who didn't know, he did a very good job of letting us know what that was so that we could enjoy the meeting and we could understand when anybody else mentioned it going forward. To say something that we should work on, just one point I would say we need to work more on the word of the day. Lots of times we go through our meetings and we don't get enough use of the word of the day. Sometimes our words are maybe difficult to remember and are difficult to pronounce, but a good thing is just to try to make sure that we do that word of the day at least 5 or 6 times. So at this time, I'm going to have a report from our counter, Allison Blakeman.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sarah, Madam General Evaluator. I love the counter role in online presenters. It is by far the easiest role in this club because of all the professionals, speakers that are here. The only person I heard that messed up tonight was me. When I was transitioning and pivoting in my table topics, I stuttered on "and." I messed up my transition there. Other than that, everyone was clean. So I got about a minute. I don't see the green light yet from Madam Timer. So I just want to say about 1 year ago, sometime around this time a year ago, I wandered into this club. This was the very first, my cat is in the way. This was my very first Toastmasters meeting I ever attended. And the convivial atmosphere of you all kept me coming back just about every week for the past year. I'm so glad that I wandered into this club. Everyone is very professional, very friendly, welcoming, supportive, loving, caring. I love this group. You made my job as the counter tonight so simple. I muted sometimes so I could sit and listen with my eyes closed so that I didn't get distracted and miss. And I'm like, I don't hear anything. So that's my report, Madam General Evaluator. Great job, everyone.
Thank you, Allison. And we're happy to have you in the club as well. Our grammarian is Andre Smolenko. Please welcome Andre.
Yes, well, thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Again, my job for today was quite easy. As Alison said, I enjoy the meeting, enjoy listening to the use of the word of the day, convivial, number of times. Congratulations to everyone who used it. I think Graham Carnes is the champion. He used it 4 times. We have a number of people who carefully crafted the words of the day into their speeches and table topics as well. Masterfully done. Well done. At the same time, I've been listening carefully to our speakers using and playing with the English language. And some of the outstanding, in my view, phrases I would like to mention now. Jim Barber, for example, said it took years. It took Toastmasters to bring me out of my shell. Just think about the gravity of that sentence. Sarah Idehan used that sentence. Music helps you open up your brain juices. I can already feel it. I can smell it. I can drink them brain juices. This is how vivid the picture was. And our speakers, Asyl used the phrases, I felt like a GPS lost its signal. And the other phrase, I had to sing for my supper after all. At the same time, to my personal liking, Marianne Grady phrase, I found my calling behind the prison walls. That was something outstanding. Thank you, Marianne. And back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Grammarian. Our next up is our chat monitor, Dr. Sunny Fridge. Please welcome Dr. Sunny.
Thank you so much, Madam General Evaluator. I've been trying to stay convivial. It was very easy. What a great meeting that we had. And I want to show you just a couple of the comments that I found educational or encouraging or humorous. Let's see, how do I do that? All right, this was one of the educational ones. Thank you, Andy Byrne, Dr. Andy, for putting this in, the many ways that we can sing for our supper. So that was encouraging as well. Let's see, what else do I have here? All right. I like that Asyl gave us a real definition of where sing for your supper as a metaphor came from. And there were a couple of other comments that followed. Marianne Grady had a little humor, actually just joy, because she said that her favorite song, her favorite go-to song is It's Raining Men. Hallelujah. Very cute. And just maybe one or two more, another humor. I love David Carr when he said that he not only had to sing, oops, I'm sorry, this is the educational one. If anyone is in a club that could use a guest speaker, he'd like to practice his pitch for the convention in Philadelphia. So members and guests, if you can help David out, you may do so. But a funny comment he said was, at work, I also have to not only sing for the supper, but he said that he has to tap dance as well. Giving praise in our chat was nothing new. Jim Barber said that was a very moving presentation, Marianne. And Graham talked a little bit about a memorable song that he had heard of in the chat. So there are a few things that are there. We also had some comments for Asyl's vocal variety. They loved it. And I enjoyed this convivial meeting, as well as the convivial way that we use the word of the day, even in the chat. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sunny, for that very exciting report. Very interesting as well. At this time, we're going to have our vote counter. Sherry Blake, tell us who gets the vote for tonight.
Thank you so much. For our best speaker, it was a tie. It was a tie. That's why I kept encouraging, 3 people didn't vote. So had the 3 people voted, maybe it would have gone differently. Well, it would have, right? For the best table topic is Andriy Smolenko. And our best evaluator by default was Annie. Thank you. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank everyone. Thank each and every one of you, for all of you with your roles. You make the meeting such an exciting meeting, and you fill in and help us and educate us in so many ways. I really love the evaluators that we have each time in any meeting, in every meeting, and especially tonight as well. And that's one of the fine things about online presenters. It's a breadth of knowledge and experience, and how well we push each other forward and lift each other up through our evaluations and helping each other do better. So at this time, this brings our meeting, this part of the meeting, to a close. And we're going to go back to our Toastmaster of the day, Graham Carnes. Please welcome Graham.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. In fact, instead of going to me, let's go to the President so she can close out our meeting, and then I'll do, after we've closed the meeting, we'll do the what's happening next week. So, President Joni.
Thank you, Graham. I was just going to say we ended at exactly 8. So as President, I now call the meeting adjourned.